Hello everyone. Hope you're all fine, doing great, and taking life by the forelocks, paying attention to everything that life gives you. Because my favorite saying is, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. That's so important. And life does give us lemons at times. It's not always sweet and nice. It does give us some tough, very tough episodes as well to see. And the important thing is, we are brave enough, we are strong enough to wade through the bad times as well and come out of them even stronger. So that is very important. I always say that, and that is the best way to, of course, move on in life and to get the best out of it. So do that. Well, we will not be talking about that, of course, in detail, because we are here for the second part of the online workshop on workplace conflict resolution. That is the conflicts of opinion, the disagreements that arise in your workplace or in your office, how to manage them, how to combat them and manage them, how to resolve different issues that arise because of the conflict of opinion, either between two people or between two groups. It can be anything. So we are going to talk about that in detail. And we are going to talk about how a balance is created, just like a balance is created in these stones, and they are standing on top of each other without falling down. So that is what we are going to discuss. And before that, I would ask you, all those who are not yet our family members here on this channel, I will ask you to please click the subscribe button. And let's go on with the discussion. Let's start off the discussion with, first of all, throwing light on why should we study conflict? Is it important to study conflict? Well. All of us who are working in offices, in our work environments, or in hospitals even, you see, or in different educational institutions, wherever we are working within a certain department with a certain group of people. We have certain groups of people who are our colleagues and who are working with us. So we are divided into groups in the same organization. That is what I mean to say. And within those groups, within those departments, sometimes differences of opinion arise because of their different roles that they are operating in, because of their different interests also. Sometimes the interests vary, and when they vary, what happens, because this is basic human psychology, we tend to have differences of opinion also, and conflicts arise. So these conflicts can be between different departments in the same organization, they can be between different groups in the same organization, or even on a much smaller level, they can be between two individuals also, and they can be between two individuals of the same department as well. So we need to study the nature of conflict, why does it arise, how to combat it, how to manage it. That's why we also need to keep the environment of the whole organization healthy. We need to avoid that friction that is caused between departments because of conflict. So we need to study conflict. And in this conflicting situation, what happens actually within departments within the same organization, between individuals or groups, what happens is this, that the interests of two groups or two individuals or two departments, they collide. And when they collide, all the departments, all the individuals, or all the groups, they want their own interests addressed. And when they think that their own interests are not being addressed properly, what do? they try to affect the decisions that are being made on a higher level, usually at the expense of others' interests. And that is where conflict arises. And that is a very, very sensitive issue and a very, very critical issue at the same time. Because if the interests of two groups within the same organization or two departments within the same organization, they are conflicting and they do not match, and because of that a conflict is arising, the organization is as a whole is at stake. The interests of the organization as a whole are damaged. So that's why it becomes very, very important to study conflict. Now, because the conflict is between two departments of the same organization or between two big groups working together in the same organization, and because both the groups or both the departments or both the individuals, they feel that their interests are at risk, and because they feel that any decision that is being taken by the organization or by the company management should be in their interest, that means we have to tackle conflict at the company level, at the root level, at the structural basis of conflict. We have to give our attention. Otherwise, we cannot address it at the interpersonal level, because the conflict has arisen at the structural level, the company basis. That is important. That's why we are going to solve it at that level. At the structural basis, we are going to target our attention towards the structural basis of conflict and thus remove it. Okay, so this is very important. When two groups should not be feeling that their interests are adverse to each other, that the company is not addressing their problems, that the company is not addressing their viewpoints, then this kind of conflict arises. So it is very important. The strategy of managing conflict at this level is very, very important and very, very critical for the whole structure of the organization. That's why this conflict needs to be studied and the evil needs to be addressed in the bud. That is very important. Here we will study a case that happened in an office in a government organization, and this is an example of ineffective conflict management. Let's see what the example is. Well, in the office there is a certain person who's working, say her name is Miss G, and she is on annual leave. Okay, Miss G was on annual leave and a person was hired temporarily to fill her space in the meanwhile, and the other person, Miss say X, who was working with her and in the same office, they used to sit together in the same office on different tables, she is present, and there is that third person who is hired, Miss B is hired. She is the bone of contention, actually, her actions, and she has been hired, and the person who is now talking is Miss X, who is an ex-colleague or a colleague of Miss G who is on annual leave. Let's see what she has to say. Miss X is complaining now, all full of complaints, and she is deeply hurt as well, because what Miss B did has hurt her. Why did Miss B do it? Let's see what she did first. She has complained against Miss X. Why? Because Miss X says, according to her, she just talked to Miss B and she said to her, please do not sit at Miss G's desk, who was on annual leave, remember? So don't sit at her desk because she's quite funny about her desk being used by somebody else. She doesn't let somebody else use her desk, and she doesn't like that somebody else uses her desk. So it's better that the desk that has been assigned to you, you sit in that desk only. So that was not something big, as well, to most of us, I think, or to many of us at least, that is not something big. We would like everybody to sit at their own places in the office. We would like ourselves to sit in our own places, and we would like others not to sit in our place. So that is something natural also, and that is not something to be minded in a big bloated way. But Miss B minded it a lot. And what happened? Because Miss B minded it a lot, she registered a complaint with the line manager's manager. And she said that Miss X is against me because of that. She has developed negative feelings for me because of that. And I feel that she is bullying me because of that. So this is what happened, and Miss G says that everything was going fine. I had my supervision day. Probably they had their supervision days fixed by their line manager. So I had my supervision day, and supervision went fine. Everything was normal. When my line manager's manager came in, and the person said that Miss B had a complaint against Miss X, and she thought Miss X was bullying her. Now the line manager told Miss X that Miss B thought that Miss X had been really negative about it, and had whatever she had asked her, she has asked her in a very nasty manner. Miss X, on the other hand, said to the line manager's manager that, well, I said it to her that please do not sit in Miss G's place. She's very sensitive about it. She's very protective about her own environment and her work environment and her desk and stuff. And besides that, Miss B has already been given a desk and all other things that are needed in the office. So she had all that. I said that to her, and I did not say it in a very negative or nasty manner. I said it to her in a very normal fashion. The line manager's manager now understood her viewpoint as well, but the manager's manager said to her that because a complaint had been registered against her, because it was reported to the higher management, that is why it was the duty of the higher management to talk to her about it. Okay, so this is how it happens. They are trying to manage the conflict in their own way. Okay, let's see. And if you have any thoughts on it, as I'm telling you the whole story, if you have any thoughts on it, please pen them down. Take a paper and pencil, or do it in your notepad, on your laptops, or in your mobile phone notepad, wherever. Do write down your thoughts, whatever you have about it. The top management then decided that Miss X must apologize to Miss B because she had hurt her feelings. And because Miss B was told to accept the apology by Miss X actually apologized to Miss B. And her apologies were accepted, and the management thought we have resolved the matter in a very amicable manner, and that is it. However, we find Miss G reporting then that after that incident, I became very shaky in my decisions and working, and I became very careful about not hurting somebody's feelings or saying something that might, irritate somebody or hurt somebody at any level. She became really, really conscious about her working, and of course, when you become so conscious about your working, what happens? Your overall performance is hampered, and because of that, then you lose your work momentum as well. Doesn't that happen? Well, think about it. Write down your thoughts, whatever you are having about this case study. Now, all of you must have written something in your notepads or on your papers, or maybe there must be some points in your minds. So, how many of you think that or have written that the conflict was managed in a very, very amicable manner? Or how many of you have written or do you think that it was not good conflict management on the part of the line manager? How many of you think that the line manager should not have brought in her or his manager to resolve the matter? How many of you think that what Miss X did should not have been done? Or how many of you think that Miss B should not have complained against Miss X? Well, now, after I have put all these questions to you, the whole situation must have come back into your minds, and I'm going to tell you what Miss X felt and how she behaved after the conflict was resolved in the manner that it was resolved in. Well, Miss X says that I became very inactive and I became very quiet. I was kind of not talking to anybody, and all that was mentioned when my next supervision turn came, and it was all mentioned that she has become quiet, she doesn't talk to anybody, she doesn't take part in anything very actively. So all those things then were mentioned about her. This was all her reaction to how the previous conflict had been resolved, and she thought that her line manager resolved the conflict in a very, very bad manner by bringing in her or his manager and the top manager talking to Miss X. Miss X has to say that if her line manager had talked to her about the situation as it came up, she would have very easily taken back her words and apologized to Miss B, and that would not have created any apprehensions in her mind, and that would not have made her so quiet and inactive at her workplace. So according to her, it was very bad conflict management. Now, a bad atmosphere, a bad work atmosphere was created because of the way the conflict that arose between two people. It was a conflict of interest. The way it arose and the way rather it was tackled was something very negative, and because of that a negative atmosphere was made in the workplace, and it is recorded that this negative atmosphere carried on for the next 2 to 3 months in the office. So this is an example, a case study of ineffective conflict management, and it is very important, because you're working with your team at whatever your level you're working with. It doesn't really matter. What matters is what kind of human relationships you have, that bonding that you have. We're all human beings working together in any office, and we should be taking care of the feelings of others, and we should be very careful about the way we approach them. We approach and resolve different conflicts. They can be conflicts of interest, they can be conflicts of viewpoint. So we should be very, very sensitive about resolving these conflicts. If like every line manager has an association or has a work relationship or has a bonding with the team members, and the line manager is the first person, is the first authoritative person that the other team members come in contact with. Now, if that first authoritative person is bypassed by the top management and somebody else intervenes, of course the team member is naturally
will feel very, very disturbed about it, and will feel as though the news of the conflict that particular team member was involved in has spread in the office, and that will give a very negative feeling to the person who was involved in the conflict, and especially to the person who was being victimized by others and who needed to apologize in the matter. So, what would have been an amicable solution of this conflict? The line manager should have talked to both the persons involved on a personal level. After Miss B had complained, the line manager should have listened to what Miss X had to say, and probably both the people, Miss B and Miss X, should have been called to the office together, and they should have, all three of them, the line manager should have sit with Miss X and Miss B, and they should have talked together on the matter and resolved it instantly. Any bad feelings would have evaporated there and then probably they would have become good friends also. And then there wouldn't have been any conflict or any negative feelings or any negative atmosphere that evolved after the way this conflict in this case study was managed. So this is how I think about it. Probably you have some other viewpoints as well. If you have some other viewpoints, you are most welcome to jot them down on the YouTube channel in the comment section under this workshop, this part 2 of this conflict resolution workshop, and we can all communicate with each other, we can all put in our share, and we can all discuss this particular case study and our thoughts on it, and that will be very, very interesting. You can all, of course, question, and all of you are welcome to answer on this platform of Live Themes with Faria Habib. And of course, I will be really interested, and I will also learn from it, as all of us will. Now, after this case study, we will discuss a bit about the conflict process, how the conflict arises in a workplace. What are the antecedent conditions that help a conflict to arise? Well, you can see here in front of you in the image, in this cyan box, that there are a few points that I've listed here, and these are the antecedent conditions that make a conflict arise in a workplace. And what are they? Number one is scarce resources. When you have dearth of resources with you, and they can be any resources, they can be the resources of normal stationery, even that's used in office, and when there is a dearth of them, there can be a dearth of the resources in respect of different machinery that is being used by people working in the same office and is being provided to one group and not to the other because of certain conditions. There can be the scarcity of resources that is then amplified in the pay structures of different groups or departments. So these can be the conditions leading to stress. Besides that, conflicting attitudes of different people who are in the same office, if they have that kind of an attitude, of course, that can always lead to a lot of conflicts. And then ambiguous jurisdiction is also a point, because when you do not know what your jurisdiction is and what the other's jurisdiction is, and you try to overstep your limits, or others try to overstep their limits, then conflicts can arise. Then communication barriers, that is very important, because when we think that we are unable to communicate our viewpoint to our line manager probably, or to the upper management even, then when we feel there are barriers, then conflict can arise very easily. Then there is a need of consensus in the office, because when there is no consensus, when there are different opinions and those opinions are not brainstormed and a certain consensus is not reached, then conflicts arise. That is again very natural. And then unresolved prior conflicts that were there in the organization and that were not paid attention to, they also become antecedent conditions for a new conflict. And then we have knowledge of self and others, because we don't know at times ourselves properly, our jurisdiction properly. We do not know what others feel and think. We don't know about their personalities, where they're coming from, their viewpoints, and that's why then conflicts can arise. All these antecedent conditions, can lead to any perceived conflict, as we are discussing here. And what happens, that perceived conflict that emerges into manifest behavior then. What kind of manifest behavior? Negative manifest behavior. People tend to become very negative about a certain thing, and a conflict arises. That is shown then in the different groups working together, or the different departments working together in the same organization, or two individuals working together in the same organization. And once that behavior is manifested, conflict resolution comes into action, or it doesn't come into action. Either the conflict gets resolved or it gets suppressed. As we discussed in the previous case study also, we saw that the conflict was suppressed. It was not resolved. And when the conflict is suppressed and not resolved, then it has negative aftermaths, as we just discussed in the case study. It had negative, in the case study, it had negative impacts on the future of the workforce in the office for the next 2 to 3 months. See, so the conflict should be resolved, it should not be suppressed. So whatever has happened, whether it has been resolved or whether it has been suppressed, then the aftermath will be seen. If it was resolved in a good manner, then something positive will be seen. If it was resolved in an unamicable manner, then negative impact will be seen. And again, that will become the antecedent condition for probably another perceived conflict. So this is the conflict process, the gyre of conflict that goes on in a workplace, and that is why conflicts need to be resolved very amicably, addressed very amicably, and consensus needs to be reached about all the situations emerging in an office environment. So I think this is about it for today, for the second part of this workshop on workplace conflict resolution. And I hope you have enjoyed this, and if you liked it, please like the video, please share it as well, and do subscribe to the channel and become a part of our YouTube channel family. We will welcome you all. And of course, give your comments. I will welcome your comments, and you can have discussions also here in the comment section. Keep them very positive and use very nice, decent language, that I must say. Take care of yourselves, take care of those around you, make others happy, and that will make you happy too. And do remember me in your prayers, please.